alligators here. And I always like to start off with a question for y'all, and that is, show of hands, is this anybody's first time here at the Georgia Sea Turtle Center? Good portion of us. All right, well, welcome. I'm very glad all of you were able to come out and visit us today. But since some of us haven't been here before, I do want to tell you a little bit more about what exactly it is we do here. So the Georgia Sea Turtle Center, first and foremost, we are a wildlife hospital and rehabilitation center. So what that means is every animal you see here today, they came to us originally from the wild, either sick or injured, and we are in the process of treating them, rehabilitating them, and the goal is to get them healthy enough to go back out into the wild. That is our number one goal for all of our animals that we have here. Now, some of those species that you'll see are obviously some sea turtles, as we are called the Sea Turtle Center. We do currently have 9 sea turtles under our care, but it is not limited to that. We actually take care of all native reptiles here in Georgia. So that includes lots of other turtle species, like our diamondback terrapins, like these little hatchlings here at the end of the walkway. We have box turtles, which you might see outside. We have freshwater turtles, gopher tortoises. Sometimes we have other reptiles, like alligators or snakes. And we can even take care of native protected birds here as well. So you never know what you're going to see anytime you visit us. But today, I do want to focus on one of our sea turtles, and that is Frank Sriracha here. Now, Frank Sriracha is one of our loggerhead sea turtles, and this is one of the 3 species of sea turtle that you'll currently find here in our care. And loggerhead sea turtles are arguably the most important species to us, and that is because this is the species of sea turtle that we actually have nesting on our beaches each and every night right now. And so here on Jekyll Island, as of this morning, we have 63 loggerhead nests laid along our beaches, and overall statewide we have over 750 loggerhead nests. So, and that's only after about a month and a week of nesting season. So we will continue to see these large adult females coming up onto our beaches through August and laying those eggs. And that's where we can really participate in that actual hands-on conservation of this species. Now, loggerheads, they do get their name for a very descriptive reason. Now, that being said, Frank Sriracha here is a very young loggerhead. They're a little over a year and a half old, and so they have not quite grown into that name just quite yet. But when they do reach a big adult reproductive age, which is not until they're about 30 years old or about 200 to 400 pounds, these animals will then have a very descriptive name. And that is because loggerhead sea turtles actually have the largest skull in comparison to their body size of any species of sea turtle in the world. Now, the reason why they have such a large skull, though, has everything to do with their choice in food. And that is because loggerhead sea turtles, they are one of our carnivorous species of sea turtles. They are seafood eaters. But with a skull like this, you're not necessarily just eating a normal everyday fish every single day. You are going to specialize in something. And so, these animals actually specialize in really hard-shelled animals. And that is because these have the ability to crush through those really hard shells. So they have very broad, flat beaks, as you can see here. And the reason why their skull is so wide and large is because they have very large jaw muscles. And so, there was actually a study done that looked at what was the pressure of their jaw. And depending on the size of that individual adult loggerhead, their pressure was anywhere between 500 to 1500 psi. So they are cracking through those really tough shells with absolutely no problems whatsoever. Now, while Frank here has a lot of growing up to do before they reach this size, that does not mean that they are not eating those hard-shelled things out in the wild. And that's because where Frank Sriracha would be at this young age is out in an area called the Sargasso Sea. And while they are out there, they will actually be eating teeny tiny crabs and things like that. But while our sea turtles are here in our hospital, we do try to avoid feeding out those super hard-shelled items just because that can be a little rough on the stomach. And just like us when we're in the hospital, they are trying to feed you whatever is easiest on your stomach. And so here in our hospital, we do feed out some seafood items. And that's typically a couple different types of fish. We have some mackerel, some herring, salmon, silver sides. Sometimes we even give them some shrimp or some squid. But with our loggerheads in particular, we still want them using those jaw muscles as they are built to do. And so what we do is we actually take all of that seafood and freeze it into a big block of ice. So for lunch today, we are going to be feeding out Frank Sriracha's seafood ice block. So you can see all that seafood frozen down in the bottom there, and to this nice big block of ice. And that way Frank will still have to use those jaw muscles to get to these food items, just as though they were eating something harder shelled out in the wild. This is also a great form of enrichment for this animal because you can kind of think about this like a puzzle feeder that you might give your dog or your cat. Frank's going to have to use their little brain to figure out how to get these pieces of seafood in on the inside, and that's just a really good form of enrichment for them while they are still here in our care. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of come over to Frank's tank, and I'm going to be kind of sneaky. And that's because I want to drop this in there when Frank is not really aware that I am standing there. And that is because this is an animal that will be going back out into the wild, and they are a wild animal. So we just don't want them getting used to humans feeding them while they are here in our care. So whenever I have a good opportunity, I'm just going to toss that ice block on in there. And what you will see is Frank Sriracha here, much like most toddlers, I would say, and is very food motivated. So they will very quickly go after that ice block and go try to work on that seafood and get it out of there. So I'll go ahead and toss that right down on in the middle. Now Frank Sriracha here has a pretty unique story in our hospital, and that's because this turtle actually came to us fresh out of the egg. And that is because since we have a nesting population of loggerheads here on Jekyll Island, we have a really intense research program that will actually study not only those nesting moms, but our hatchlings as well. And so what we do is while we are out there, we are patrolling and looking at our beaches, looking at every single nest. Once we see signs that a nest has hatched out, we then start a clock, and that clock is for 5 days. And at the end of those 5 days, we actually dig up the nest to do an inventory to see what happened inside of there, how many eggs hatched out, how many didn't, and sometimes we come across what we call straggler hatchlings. Now 9 times out of 10 these straggler hatchlings are perfectly healthy. They literally just got stuck in about a 2-foot hole in the sand and need a little bit of a helping hand. However, there's that 1 time out of 10 where this is maybe a turtle that had an injury, or maybe they're a bit smaller and weaker than they should have been, kind of like the runt of the litter. And that's kind of what category Frank Sriracha fell into. They were a lot smaller, a lot weaker, a lot more lethargic than we would have liked to see from a freshly hatched out hatchling. And so we did make the decision to bring Frank Sriracha into our hospital, where we then provided them with some fluid and vitamin therapy, and then with this really good hearty diet to help kind of get them a bit bigger and a bit stronger. Now we are kind of coming towards the close of that though, and that is because as you can see, Frank Sriracha is eating really well. They are very strong, very healthy, and they're a lot bigger than when they first came in, considering when they first came in, they were only about the size of an Oreo. Now we're a little over 4 pounds now. And so they've done a lot of growing in their 1.5 years here in our hospital. So at this point, we are getting them ready for the next step in their journey and getting them prepared to leave our hospital, which is always exciting for us here in our care, because that is our number 1 goal for us here in our hospital. Now, while in Frank Sriracha's case, they were found by researchers and things like that, this is a very critical time of the year for us here on our island, where we really do rely on folks like yourselves to help us protect and conserve our loggerhead sea turtles. So since it is nesting season, the best thing to do is that when you do go out and enjoy our beaches here on Jekyll Island or along the Georgia coast, it is totally fine to have a grand old time, build some sandcastles, dig some holes, bring all your toys and items out to the beach. But at the end of our day, it is imperative to make sure we are leaving the beach as we found it, knocking down those sandcastles, filling in those holes, making sure we take all of our belongings back up off the beach. Because if a big mom comes along, that could scare her away, or she could potentially get stuck in those things. And even more importantly, when we do head into hatchling season, since they are so teeny tiny, even just a little tiny moat that you've dug on the sand could be a huge obstacle to these guys making it out to the ocean. So that is just one really, really easy way that you guys can really help us with our loggerhead conservation here along the Georgia coast. But y'all visiting us today, you have already helped each and every one of our animals here in our care, Frank Sriracha included. And that is because all of your admissions, anything you get in the gift shop, or if you want to participate in our symbolic adoption programs, these are the things that fund this hospital and allow us to take care of each of these animals that you see here today. But more importantly, you visiting us, supporting us, and hopefully just wanting to learn a little bit more about how you can help us protect our sea turtles out in the wild. That is how we prevent them from coming to us in the first place, which is our number 1 goal here. So we are extremely grateful to each and every one of you for coming out and visiting us today. This is officially the end of my little talk, but if y'all have any questions at all about